Hello guys, welcome back, and today I'm going to be doing my 2019 IIHF World Junior Championship Tournament predictions. Now this year's World Junior Championships should be an amazing one to watch. In the past years, we've seen a lot of teams compete, but going into this year's World Junior Championship, there's a lot of teams looking to get that gold medal, and with that, I had a lot of fun predicting the tournament because I think there's a ton of ways that this tournament could go. Now, when it came to my predictions, I'm gonna be honest, it was pretty challenging to put them together. While it was fun, it was also challenging at the same time, because I would say that there's 5 teams that could realistically compete for a gold medal this year, but those are 5 teams that are usually matching up together, so I had to predict those games, and that was pretty hard, but I ultimately came to a resolve. I'm gonna be honest, some of these predictions will probably surprise a lot of you guys. Now, just to clarify, I am an American-born guy. I'm from Texas, so I am rooting for Team USA in this year's World Junior Championship. But when making my predictions, I try to put as much bias aside as I possibly could to make it as fair for you guys instead. Now, to explain how the World Junior Championships work, it's kind of complicated because at first I was kind of confused how it works, but I got it down just a little bit. Now, at the start, there's just to clarify, there are 2 groups, Group A and Group B. Both groups have 5 teams in them, and this year it's the same. Now, both groups have 5 teams. Now, every team plays 4 games to start out the preliminary rounds. These are not the brackets. These are the first 4 games that all teams play, and then they head on to the brackets, and then they head on to the actual tournament. Now, the reason they do the first 4 preliminary games is because they want to cut down the teams in the World Junior Championships. Now, for the World Junior Championships, they start with 10 hockey teams, but by the time the tournament starts, it cuts down to 8. So, for instance, in last year's tournament, it started, the bottom place teams in the division were Belarus and Denmark. Of course, each group has 5 teams, so the bottom place team in both groups ends up getting cut, and the tournament starts after that. So, in last year's World Junior Championships, Belarus and Denmark finished last, so they were cut and were not able to participate in the tournament. Then, after that, it moves on to the tournament that we know and love. Of course, starting with the quarterfinals, the semifinals, the gold medal game, and then the bronze medal game. And of course, you guys know I'll be predicting all of that, plus the preliminary rounds in this video. And of course, I'll predict the teams that end up getting cut. Now, before we get into my predictions, I'm going to quickly go through the teams in both Group A and Group B. And we're going to start out with Group A, and the teams in Group A are Czech Republic, Denmark, Canada, Russia, and Switzerland. And we're going into Group B. The teams in Group B are USA, Slovakia, Sweden, Kazakhstan, and of course, Finland. Now, I'm going to start with my predictions of Group A, and the team that I predict to finish last in Group A is Denmark, unfortunately. Of course, all teams play 4 games, so for Denmark, I do predict them to get 1 point in the tournament, which is pretty decent for them after last season not getting any points in the tournament. Now, for their record, I had them at a 0-0-3-1 record. Now, in this World Junior Championships, there's wins, overtime wins, losses, and overtime losses. And for the points, we're just going to make Denmark as an example. For wins, you get 3 points. For overtime wins, you get 2 points. For losses, of course, 0 points. And for overtime losses, you get 1 point. And with that overtime losses, I think Denmark will get, they'll get 1 point in the tournament. Now, finishing number 4 in Group A, I have the Czech Republic. They're at a 1-1-2-0 record. I have them finishing with 5 points. Of course, 1 win, which is 3 points, and 1 overtime win, which is 2 points. With Czech Republic, at least in the preliminary games, I don't see them doing too well. With Czech Republic, they got guys like Filip Zania, Martin Kotz, Martin Nikash, which is pretty solid on paper, but I just don't see the depth for Czech Republic that some other teams have. Finishing number 3rd in Group A, I have Switzerland, and this may come as a surprise to a lot of people, but Switzerland, I have upsetting a couple of teams, and I also have Switzerland having a pretty more easier schedule, I would say, than some other teams. But with Switzerland, I see them pulling out a couple of wins. While I don't have the best team in the world, I feel like they could possibly upset some teams. Now, if I have them finishing at a 2-0-2-0 record, which would have them at 6 points, 1 point above Czech Republic having 2 regulation wins. But with Swiss, I see them upsetting a couple of teams. I think they did that in the last couple of years with their team, and I think they'll continue to do that in this year's tournament. Now, finishing number 2 in Group A, I have Team Russia. I have them finishing at a 3-0, 1-0 record, which would put them at 9 points in Group A, which is pretty solid. Now, with Team Russia, I don't have a lot of expectations for them. They aren't the best team in the world, but I still think they have potential, and I still think they'll do pretty well in the preliminary rounds, and they have a little bit more of an easier schedule, I would say, than some other teams, but I still think that Team Russia will get it done, and will have a pretty good record going into the tournament. Now, the team that I see finishing number 1 in Group A is Team Canada. I see them finishing with a 3-0, 1-0 record. I have them finishing with 9 points, tied with Russia for that number 1 spot, but I see Canada taking that tiebreaker, at least on paper. But with Team Canada, of course, this is their tournament. Team Canada, of course, the World Junior Championships being in Vancouver, Team Canada is going to want to show up, and I think they are going to play very well. They will get 1 regulation loss, but for the other 3 games, I think they'll be able to get it out. And with Team Canada, they still have an amazing team on paper. Now, heading over to Group B, and for the team that I see finishing last in the division, and the team that I see getting cut from the tournament, I think it will be Kazakhstan. To be honest, going into this tournament, I didn't even think Kazakhstan qualified for this, but when it came to their World Junior Championship roster, it isn't terrible, I'd say, but it's not really good enough to compete in any sort of World Junior Championships games, so I didn't have them getting anything. Unfortunately, I had them as the only team going 0-0, 4-0, making them having 0 points in the entire World Junior Championships. The team that I see finishing 4th in Group B, I see Slovakia finishing 4th. Now, I see them finishing with a 1-0, 3-0 record, having 3 points in the tournament. I'm going to be honest, the only reason they have that 1 win is because they're playing Kazakhstan that 1 time in the tournament. That's the only reason why they have a win. With Slovakia, I mean, they don't have a terrible team. It's probably better than Kazakhstan, but I just don't see this team competing for any of those games, really. Besides that 1 game versus Kazakhstan, I think it's going to be a pretty rough tournament for them, even if they do end up qualifying for the tournament. Now, the team that I see finishing 3rd in Group B, I have Team Sweden. Now, I see them finishing with a 2-1, 1-0 record, having 8 points on the tournament, which for their team is okay, but of course, Sweden usually has pretty high standards for the World Junior Championships. But with Team Sweden, I'll go into this a little bit later when I go into the tournament and their games, but I just think they have a little bit more of a weaker roster compared to last year's. But with Team Sweden, they're still going to be a decent team, but I just don't see them dominating the tournament like they did in years past. At number 2, I have USA finishing 2nd in the Group B. Now, I have them finishing at a 2-1-0-1 record, which will put them at 9 points, 1 point above Sweden, just barely getting that 2nd spot. But with Team USA, they have, I would say, one of the best rosters in this World Junior Championships. I think they will be able to have a pretty good one, and of course, I think they'll have a pretty decent tournament. But when it comes to USA, I think they'll do well here. Maybe not as good as expected, but I still think they'll have a pretty good record going into the World Junior Championship tournament. Now, the team that I see finishing number 1 in Group B, I see Finland getting it done. I see them finishing with a 3-0-0-1 record, which leaves them at 10 points, which will mean that they have the most points in the entire preliminary rounds. I see Finland doing pretty well in this respect. I like their team a lot, and I think they have great potential. But with Team Finland, I think they have maybe a more easier schedule than some other teams, but I still think they're going to be able to get it done with the team that they have right now. So, of course, with my predictions in the preliminary rounds, the World Junior Championship, starting with 10 teams, that'll mean that Denmark and Kazakhstan will be eliminated from the bracket tournament, and of course, the remaining 8 teams would face off together in a battle and a brawl to get to that gold medal game. So now we're getting into the real part about this, the tournament part about this, and while the preliminary rounds does decide who makes this, we are now on to the official tournament, and of course, here is where the real fun begins. Now, just to preview the first round, it is the quarterfinals, and in this round, they really do match up well. The groups kind of mash together, so some Group B Group B teams will face off against Group A teams, and vice versa, to make a lot of balanced matchups. Now, for the first one we're going to go over, it's going to be Finland versus the Czech Republic, Finland being the first team in the Group B, and Czech Republic being the 4th team in Group A. Then the next matchup is Russia versus Sweden, Russia being the the second A team, while Sweden being the third B team. And for the second to last one, you have Canada versus Slovakia. Canada being the 1A team, Slovakia being the 4B team, and last but not least, in the quarterfinals, you have USA versus Switzerland, USA being the 2B team, and Switzerland being the 3A team. Now, the first matchup we have in the quarterfinals is between Finland and the Czech Republic, and this matchup I think could be pretty good. Of course, Czech Republic not being too great in the preliminary rounds, but I think they might show up for the tournament itself. But I do see Finland winning this game 4-2 over the Czech Republic. I see it being close till the end, but Finland getting the edge just barely. Czech Republic, their team is honestly pretty solid. I love guys like Zdania, Martin Kods, Martin Nikash. The defense is okay, the goaltending can be okay, but I just think with Czech Republic, they're not a deep enough team to contend for maybe even a semifinals in this tournament. And while I think they're a decent team, I think they'll get some rotten luck when it comes to matchups, and they probably won't face off against easier opponents. And a team like Finland, I think, will just powerhouse them through, even if it might be a close game. The next matchup is between Russia and Team Sweden, and this one could be honestly an amazing game. Now, both teams, of course, being pretty solid, but in the end, I do see Sweden winning this game. I'm going to say Sweden wins it 2-1 in overtime. I see it being a close defensive type battle, and with Russia, that's usually not the case, but I see that happening here. But with Russia's team, they have a lot of offense, but I think Sweden's defense will just kind of shut them down. But with this game, I see it being close, but Sweden ultimately getting the edge in the long run. Now, the next quarterfinal game is between Canada and Slovakia, and I'm going to be honest here, Canada will have no trouble getting past this game. I'm going to say Canada wins this game 6-1, and while Slovakia did get a pretty decent job getting up to this point, I just think that Canada is the much better team, and I see Canada pretty much dominating this game all the way through, and it could be even more ugly than a 5-goal game. It could be even worse than that, but I'm going to give Slovakia just a little bit of credit that they won't get completely blown out, but just a little blown out by Canada. The last quarterfinal game, though, between USA and Switzerland could be pretty interesting, but in the end, I do see USA winning this game. I'm going to say USA wins this game 5-0. Poor Switzerland, I just don't see them having too much of a chance. And while they did play pretty decent in the preliminary rounds, getting that third spot in the Group A group, I still think USA will overpower them when it comes to the overall team. And while Switzerland might be okay, I just don't see them getting past a team like USA. Now, to preview the semi-final rounds, we have two games. We're going to start with Finland versus Sweden. Finland, of course, being the 1B team, Sweden being the 3B team, and the other game between Canada and USA is going to be an instant classic. Now, for the first semi-final game between Finland and Sweden, it would be an instant classic if this ended up happening. Both teams absolutely hate each other. Both teams are going to go super hard. They're both going to play like this is the gold medal game, because it is almost our gold medal game between these two teams. But in the end, I do see Finland getting past Sweden. I see Finland winning this game at 2-1, having it very close throughout the whole game. It's going to be a defensive battle. Both teams have great defenses. I feel like it's going to be a really pinch type of trap type game. But when it comes down to it, I feel like this will be a close game and almost an instant classic when it's all said and done. Speaking of instant classics, for the last semi-final game, I have Canada versus USA. The best matchup almost every single year in the World Junior Championships, and as a USA fan, sometimes that hurts to say. But this game is going to go down to the wire. I'm going to say it goes into overtime, but both teams tied 3-3 going into overtime. But I'm going to say, as a USA fan, that USA ends up winning this game to advance to the gold medal game, USA beating Canada to get that sweet revenge, and able to get it done this year. With Team USA's team, I think they're just really solid, and they're really built to compete for this year. And with Team Canada, that's no offense to them, because they have a pretty solid team too, but I would have changed some players around. I'm not really happy with Canada's roster, to be honest. I feel like they could have been a lot better. So while I still think Team Canada is a decent team, I think Team USA will get the best of them. Which means for the two last games, we're going to have some great ones. Of course, the gold medal game and the bronze medal game. For the bronze medal game, it's between Canada and Sweden. Should be a very good one. And of course, for this year's gold medal game, I predict it to be Finland versus USA. Now, before we get into the gold medal game, I'm going to go through the bronze medal game between Canada and Sweden. And this one could be very solid as well. I see it being pretty close to the end, but I do see Canada getting the advantage and winning this game 4-2. While I like Sweden's team, I just don't see them having the offensive firepower to really compete for a gold medal in this year's tournament. Unlike last year where they had a lot of offensive firepower, I feel like this year is not quite it for them. But for Canada, they still have a pretty decent team. Getting the bronze medal is pretty good for them, but I just don't see them getting quite over the hump of a team like USA or maybe some other teams in the tournament. Which leaves us to the gold medal game for 2019 World Junior Championships. I have Team Finland and Team USA facing off in an absolute brawl. Both teams having excellent rosters, and both teams could honestly win this game. But I see it being a very close game. I see it being a little bit more of an offensive type game. Going into overtime, I see it being tied 4-4. Both teams being very tired from the tournament and all the games they played leading up to this point. Both teams want to get it done. It goes back and forth. But the team that I see winning this tournament and the team that I see getting the overtime goal is Team Finland. I see Team Finland winning the 2019 World Junior Championships in the gold medal game over Team USA, a 5-4 defeat, a heartbreaker for Team USA and of course all the Team USA fans. But Finland, I think, will get it done in this year's tournament. I think that they'll win it in overtime versus Team USA. Now, of course, you may be asking, who will score the golden goal? And for my prediction, to win in overtime, the player that I see scoring that goal, I see Aleksi Heponiemi of the Florida Panthers getting that goal, or that game-winning goal. And while he's more of he's more of a passer, I would say, I see him getting the game-winning goal. And with Team Finland, they have a lot of offensive firepower, so anybody in that position could be able to get it. But again, I see this gold medal game going down to the wire, being very close, and being a brawl right till the end until Heponiemi gets that game-winning goal. And for Team USA, I would still be proud of them as a Team USA fan, getting that silver medal and getting so close to that gold medal. But of course, Team Finland, a great accomplishment for them if they were able to do it. And with Team USA, I don't see any silver medal throwing in this year's tournament. At least, I hope not from our team. But with my predictions, I usually have a track record of jinxing teams, jinxing franchises. So for Team Finland and for the Finland fans watching right now, you better be cautious because I don't have an excellent track record when it comes to predictions, and I usually end up jinxing teams pretty much every single time. So when Finland ends up choking in the quarterfinals or not even making it, who knows, you know who to blame. But honestly, when it comes to my predictions, I could have picked a lot of other teams to get the gold medal. There's a lot of teams in this tournament that I could see getting it done. Unfortunately, some teams had to be left behind. Some teams had to get beaten in the quarters and the semifinals. But I still think there's a lot of competitive teams in this year's World Junior Championships, and I could see it going a lot of different ways. Honestly, though, the surprising teams, the surprising defeats, and the upsets are always some of the most fun parts about these tournaments. And of course, the teams that nobody expects to do well, doing well is always one of the more fun parts. So, while Finland might not win this year's World Junior Championships, and while I still predict them to win, honestly, with this year's World Junior Championships, it's going to be a lot of fun to see which teams upset, which teams get disappointed, and of course, which team ends up winning it. But of course, I know my Finland Team USA matchup might be a little bit controversial, so that's where you guys come in. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments down below. What do you think about my bracket? What do you think about my predictions for this year's World Junior Championship? And of course, what are you guys' predictions? And of course, who do you think won the gold medal this year? But of course, if you guys want some more World Junior Championship videos, you can click on this playlist to watch all my videos surrounding the World Junior Championships. But that is going for it, guys. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Again, comment down below your thoughts on my predictions and your predictions for this year's World Junior Championships. And I'll see you guys next video or stream. Goodbye.